The thing is, your answer, Africa, this is scary. If you would see my notes right now, the timeline of how I was gonna break down, like when I had my mental confrontation, 2018, 2019, I'm like, listen to you, like, this is exactly what happened to me in different ways.
Really?
But okay, so 2018, like that is when, and it didn't, like you said, it didn't happen like right off the jump. It was a gradual happening, and it happened. It occurred at the last, I'd say, 5 months, 4 months when I was leading Black Lives Matter in Columbus. And it wasn't my organization because I was at the helm of it and I was able to organize it and tailor it to the city. But when I would go to other BLM groups, or not even BLM groups, it could just be, liberation groups, I would be in there internally questioning things. But I would never speak out against it because I thought it was me. I was like, oh, this is like some anti-Blackness in me, or this is like work I need to do, or I'm off. Like I did not think anyone had the issue. I thought it was me, but then deep inside me, I'm like, but this doesn't morally align with me. Yes. And then also I was saying things that I thought I believed in, like, but they were contradictory. Like, white silence is violence, but when we come to, discussions and in spaces and forums where we're having dialogue on race relations, we want people that are non-Black to be quiet. Like, don't say anything, just listen to us. So when I really started thinking that, I'm like, I'm saying this, but I posted this. That doesn't make sense. Of course they're confused. Of course people would be confused because I haven't even logically made sense of what I'm speaking and saying.
Yes.
So yes, around 2018, that's when I started having internal, questions about it, and was like, I think this is going to backfire one day. I'm like, I think this dialogue, I think people are going to call it on its bluff one day. But I'm like, maybe not now, because white fragility was hot. And this is when everyone wanted to be woke and everyone wanted to be a revolutionary. So I was like, maybe I'm tripping, but I don't know. So then I go to NYU later in the year, like the last month or so of 2018. And it's funny, like you said, you got that message from that man. And right when you said that, I'm like, I got like a figurative message too that clashed with my mind, that set me on this track. But it came in a way of a writing that I did, a polemic that I did against Thomas Chatterton Williams. Do you know him?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I read about his work. I read his book, Self-Portrait, Black and White. I read some critiques he did on certain Black writers, and the polemic that I wrote about him, of course, is supposed to analyze his ideas, but it completely attacked his identity. It was such a revenge piece on him. And when I say during the workshop with my other classmates, my friends, and everyone I've been with like throughout the year, because this is the last semester, they critiqued my work and in a way that now I understand why. But I was so confused. I'm like, everyone in here is wrong. Everyone's racist. I was calling everyone, I was thinking like the teacher racist, my friend over there is right. All y'all don't understand the Black plight. You don't get this. Like, and I almost felt like I don't even have to like give real evidence or cite too much about this or this, because look at me, I'm Black, and my narrative trumps yours. Like, I really felt like that. But then when my director said, I want you to stick with this topic, I want you to stick with writing a polemic against Thomas, but be more objective. So I tried. I was like, Brittany, remove yourself from it this time. Remove yourself as much as you can. You are not Brittany King critiquing Thomas. You're a critic. You're an objective lens. That's it. When I did that, one, I got an A on my polemic. But two, I realized the ideas that I first thought I initially disagreed with, when I logically made sense and came in good faith with what Thomas was saying, I realized there were a couple of things I did agree with. I was like, oh, I totally get why he said that. And I actually agree with it. So then after I graduated is when I did my own coursework on myself. And this was like 2019, December 2019. And I said, okay, Brittany, you are going to revisit all the people, as many people as you can, that you figuratively threw away in the trash, that said one thing that you didn't like. You're going to learn something about them, or just hear them. You don't have to love them. You don't even have to be like, okay, I'm going to take them in, you know, put them on my bookshelf. No, just consider their point. And if they have nothing to say, move on. So I was, you know, listening to all these people like Shelby Still, Thomas Sowell, like all the people. I was like, nah, I ain't about it. And other people, not just on race, just on anything.
Yeah.
And then I stumbled across a debate online, and it had Jordan Peterson on it. I had no idea who he was at all. But I was like, man, the way he thinks, the way he's like getting at this information is pretty brilliant and insightful. So I started listening more and more about him. And then I stumbled upon the controversy on the back end. Then I was like, oh, so what am I missing? Like, so instead of just saying, okay, I can't, you know, take in what he says, or I can't consider his thoughts. I was like, okay, I need to vet and see if I am missing a blind spot on him. And I realized after watching debates and reading articles, watching the C-16 hearing in Canada, and doing my own research, I was like, his detractors are completely off, like objectively off. So yeah, everything you're saying is aligning, because it just happened. Like something in me was like, there's something off, like red flags, just little pebbles here and there. And then that confrontation, that was like a mirror. Like, you don't even know why you say the stuff you say, Brittany. You don't even know. So then, but it was that choice not to regress and be like, no, I'm right. It was the choice to be like, I could be wrong. Let's venture it now. That was the thing. And so, and I know that's why we are we're like, just think for yourself, please, guys. Free yourself. But I want to ask you about Jordan Peterson. But I first want to ask you about this, because you talked about how, you know, you would be afraid to speak out because of going against the mob or the herd, and because you know what they might do to you, and things of that nature. Do you think that experience obviously it does make you a more effective mindset coach, but do you think you would even be doing the work that you're doing at all if you didn't have that major confrontation that made you so uncomfortable? Do you think you'd be doing any of this type of work?
No. And you know what? My major confrontation wasn't even that incident that I've laid out with that man over a year ago now. It actually goes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning, my sobriety. Those 7 relapses were deeply uncomfortable. And the things that I was, as you said something really important, Brittany, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you were saying that you weren't drinking because of the taste of alcohol. It was to numb something. It was to mask something else. And just that knowing, which is a knowing that is very present when you're sober, that's deeply uncomfortable, right? So that moment last year was just a collection of many uncomfortable moments that have happened. But my sobriety and my relapses have allowed me to do the work that I do, because I've been mindset coaching and consulting and doing that work in psychology for the past 4 years. So a year after I got sober. But that specific moment with that man on Instagram in the summer of 2020, that was a shock to my system, because I thought I really knew myself. I had never done anything like that before in my sobriety, and it had been, 4 years? I had never done anything that out of character, which is why, again, and that's, let's just zoom in on that part, what I've just said, out of character. because that means you can change. There are so many sides to you that you absolutely don't fucking know. It just takes the right environment, the right situation, the right emotional state, even if it's the wrong one, for you to be revealed to a part of yourself that you don't even know exists, right? What does that tell us? That we're capable of changing. You could think, in theory, you could say all of the things, I'm welcome to people disagreeing with me, is a very common one. I say it all the time, and I am. But let me tell you something, and I'd love to know if this happens to you. I still get that default when someone says, actually, I don't agree, because I'm like, oh, you don't agree with me? It's very brief, but it's a very human thing. It happens. It's not like every single time I lean in with excitement, like, oh, please tell me where you disagree. Sometimes I do, if I'm in a really, if it's with someone that I know already, maybe we intellectually stimulate each other. It's something that we do for each other to kind of challenge then it's very different. But when it's a stranger, someone I don't know, and it's maybe happening in a public space where they say, actually, I don't agree with you, or you're wrong because of this. In theory, in my mind, intellectually, I really like that. And I welcome that because it's going to allow me to grow. But my immediate response, it's like that, I call it the initial ouch, where it's like, oh, okay, you don't agree with me. And then you have a choice, right? In that moment to either lean into it and be like, okay, let's have a discussion, or you double down and say, this is why I'm right. So it's just, I guess I'm saying all of this to say, and to illustrate just how fluid we are. We think we know ourselves. We think we know everything. We think we know how we're going to respond, but you don't fucking know. Until it happens, you don't actually know. You can train yourself so that you become better at responding, not reacting, but you don't actually know. But yeah, I would say that moment or those moments for the past 5 years and beyond of discomfort and seeing a side to myself that I didn't quite expect, those moments definitely influence how I coach as a mindset coach, how I address issues of the mind, even though I don't really like the word issues, it's what we call it. And it allows me to understand people better and to kind of soften up better as well.
I 100% agree with you. I understand that feeling where, and it might not happen every single time with us, but yeah, and it might be like a particular topic that might be, we're more passionate about. If someone disagrees, we might be like, we might not even say it, but we might be like, excuse me? I'm not gonna lie, it's human. And I don't think anyone will ever rid that. And I often describe it as like having hard conversations with people that you oppose or that oppose you just gives you this, like you said, it trains you and it gives you like the mental muscle to stick it out, like stick out the conversation. But the fact that you're aware of the fact that you do that is good. Like the fact that you can, that like, okay, you're having this, just chill. That's your ego. That's sometimes I have to say that while I'm talking to people. I'll be like, chill out, breathe. It's okay. But yeah, it's nothing I don't think anyone just always automatically overcomes, because we obviously see that in the public sphere. People are like, oh, you can agree with me or disagree is fine. And then we see them blowing up. Not to say that's not human, but we see it all the time. Like even with the top dogs, the big dogs. So
can I just jump in and give an example right there, because it's someone that a few people have asked me about. So I've had a few people ask me, so what are your thoughts on Candace Owens, for example? That's something that people ask me. I'm sure people love to ask you as well. And I say, meh, I don't really take to her. And I say that because I think a lot of the ideas that she puts out are pretty much everything that I've heard from Thomas Sowell, from Larry Elder. To be honest, it's just being delivered in a different way. And to me, the reason I'm bringing up her name, I think it's a perfect example of people saying, oh, you can disagree with me, etc. But then when they actually do, you're responding in the exact same way that you push back against. And I think it's important to address those things, because we are in a time right now where that message of I'm willing to speak to people that I disagree with, you know, I'm pushing back against cancel culture, or I'm anti-woke, whatever, is a message that is already being commodified in so many ways. It's kind of like a thing in ways, which is why I don't like to use certain terms, because I know that it immediately puts people's defenses up and they won't be willing to engage with the conversations. But I think I try not to listen too much to what people say. I just watch what they do and how they actually respond, which is why for me, I think it's very honest to say I am very open to people disagreeing with me. And I do realize that I have those initial defaults, which I'm okay with. I don't think it's anything to overcome. I just think it's something to bring awareness to. But I also make sure that I don't put any other thinker or anyone on a pedestal, because many people do prove that they're not actually able to handle disagreement, and they've kind of created new echo chambers so they can stay safe still. Mm-hmm. But I just find that interesting, because it's someone people ask me about.
And the last point you made about people like still not being able to think for themselves and relying on thinkers. I see so many people like they call themselves like independent thinkers, but they're just like regurgitating talking points from like other people, because they really can't stand, like they can't stand on their own. They might be, you know, reciting or an orthodox thinker or a heterodox thinker, but they're still not your thoughts. Like you're just quoting them. Like, what do you think? But yeah. Candace Owens, let's just say she's not on my bookshelf. I'll just say that. But with her, she does say a lot of the same things Thomas Sowell says and Shelby Still and things like that. But like you said, I go on how they're delivering it. You know, delivery to me is everything. And
oh yeah,
like I can hear the same thing from Thomas Sowell and not get this reaction that I would hear it from Candace. But the thing is I'm not going to do what people do to her. I'm not going to participate in calling her the names, you know. I'm not going to say she's Uncle Tom. I'm not going to say she's a coon, because I'm a proponent for free Black thought. I wrote an essay about it. I'm a proponent for all types of Black people. Like there's 40 million narratives of Black people. Each of us can say what we want to say. Like why? Like I'm not going to be like, well, you're not Black because you don't think the way I think. Like I'm not going to, even though I'm not going to call her for coffee anytime soon. But I would never say that about her, because she can say what she wants. Freedom of speech. And two, her identity, she can be a problematic person without you saying that she is a coon. Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like the same way you 100%. Would say about someone else being problematic, you don't like them, and you're not attaching color to it. You don't have to be like, you're like that. That perpetuates the whole issue that we face. It does. Because we're pigeonholed.
And this is something that and this is something actually that, because I understand why people ask, even though I'm not in the US, which I just also find quite funny about the whole thing, because I had no idea who she was before last summer, but because of similar things that we talk about, and there are things that she has said which I agree with, and I think her delivery can be very important. And to be honest, in finding my own voice, I did need to see people like Candace to be like, oh my fucking goodness, it is possible. It is possible to say what you really think and to be able to be quite unapologetic about it. I thought that was really important. And those aspects I've always publicly, when people ask me, I'm like, yeah. But I think for me, hypocrisy is where I have an issue. I will never stand for people using racial slurs against her. I just find that to be really sick, actually. I don't know how people can do that and think that they actually stand for something that means something. But I think for me, it's just hypocrisy. When I see it, I'm just like, but it doesn't make me dismiss the whole person, because you can still do that. And then you can still say something that I'm like, actually, yeah, no, but she's making sense again. And then the next minute, maybe she might decide to cancel someone. And then I'm like, okay, I'll leave that part. But then the next time she might say, so I think in the same respect, and I like what you're saying, because it's something else that I talk about, that you don't have to discard the entire person. You can discard an idea, you can discard a behavior, and you can take what you need and leave what you don't. And I think that's a mindset that I try to have with a lot of people. I just allow their behavior to kind of give me a fuller picture of who they are. And it also helps me to remove them from a pedestal, because then I'm like, yeah, you're just another human being, you know. But it's just interesting when a person doesn't see those blind spots within themselves and they're not kind of willing to see it. But I think it just reminds you of our kind of humanity, right? In some way.